Can we trust our memories? False memory and why it's dangerous.
False memory is defined as a psychological condition in which a person believes he or she remembers an event that has not actually occurred.
Is this something we should even care about? How does this impact us? In day-to-day life, we are not affected by the negative consequences of false memory, but every so often it can have very grave consequences.
Later, we will show you an example of a Hollywood portrayal of an extreme circumstance where false memory had a profound effect on one's man's life. But first, let's take a look at some studies and current research. Finally, we will take a look at false memory and practical applications in everyday life.
Telling Truths, Content Borrowing, and Vivid False Memories by Lampinen, Meyer, Arnold, and Leading investigates how memories can be easily manipulated. In 2 experiments using Think Out Loud protocols at both study and test, evidence for content borrowing occurred for more than half of the false remember judgments participants reported. The present study also provides evidence consistent with recollection rejection and distinctiveness playing a role in false memory editing. Another experiment on false memory is from Dees, Roediger, and McDermott. It explores the issue using a relatively simple experimental design. Using a straightforward test comprised of 2 lists of themed words, the relative frequency for the formation of false memories can be determined. Subjects are shown the 2 lists, and after all are presented in sequential order, their ability to recall or recognize the words is then tested. It is here that the experimenters introduce the normal distractor and special distractor words. The former are random words thrown in simply to add the challenge of recall, while the latter are words that are thoughtfully added for their similarity to the list of presented words. These words, because of their likeness to the original terms, provoke the creation of false memories, so subjects will be more likely to say they had previously seen said word simply because it seemed familiar.
The movie The Hurricane is a great example of how Hollywood sometimes exaggerates and dramatizes a psychological phenomenon. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Carter is the slave name that was given to my forefathers and was passed on to me. Hurricane is the professional name that I acquired later on in life. One thing I could do, and the only thing, was box.
Can you believe that black punk? He thinks he's champion of the world.
We're looking for 2 Negroes in a white car.
Any 2 will do.
Look carefully, sir. Are these the 2 men who shot you?
He said no.
Take another look, sir.
Reuben Carter, you are sentenced to be imprisoned for the remainder of your natural life.
I'm innocent. I've committed no crime. Crime's been committed against me. I'm dead. Just bury me, please.
The movie is about Reuben Hurricane Carter, played by Denzel Washington, who in the 1960s rose to become a top-ranking middleweight boxer and who was thought by many to be one of the best contenders for the championship. He is wrongfully charged and convicted of the homicide of 3 victims in a bar in New Jersey. Though Carter proclaimed his innocence, and despite numerous pieces of evidence and testimony, it is the eyewitness testimony of one man that damns Carter to be found guilty and receive 3 consecutive life sentences. After nearly a decade in prison, Carter finds an advocate in the young Lesra Martin, who is certain of the hurricane's innocence, and joining forces with a group of activists from Canada, rallies the legal system to revisit the case and release Carter in 1985, 2 decades later, after determining that race, not facts, were the cause of his wrongful imprisonment.
It is not the most accurate depiction of false memory because there are other factors such as race and politics influencing the decision, but it does a great job of showing how one lapse in memory can have grave consequences.
How can our own brains work against us, even when all the facts are laid out right in front of us and our better judgment implores us to consider all possibilities? The Hurricane also does an excellent job of showing the strong link between legal cases and the psychological phenomenon. Now, Alfred Bellow has ulterior motives for suggesting that Carter was responsible, but it is a great representation of what often happens in a legal case. False memory holds that a person may be influenced by a certain memory, even though it may not be true. This can be seen especially when looking at eyewitness testimony and how precarious it can be. Though this film has a biased witness from the get-go, it does a great job of showing the link between the outer and inner influences that affect an individual's judgment when asked to point out the perpetrator from a lineup. The fact that so many individuals serve time, life sentences, and even are condemned to die for crimes they did not commit has to make one wonder how this can be happening so often.
Should I worry about false memory? How does it impact my life?
No, this does not mean you should change how you live your life, but it is important to keep in mind, as someday you may be put in a situation where you are required to call upon your memory, and your ability or inability to do so could have consequences.
Okay, so what you're saying is, false memory can be dangerous and has huge implications for all parties involved. But there are efforts being made to curb this, and researchers have started to deal with the development of an interview procedure called cognitive interview. They want to get the most accurate report possible for witnesses.